Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today we're going to take a look at Carlos's fun, fabulous, and affordable collection. And we're going to see a lot of watches I bet you've never seen before. There were a lot that I'd never seen before. So let's get started. Now the first one I have here is a number of called Android. And the movement in all of these, the Chinese brand, the movements are seagull movement in it, but I was struck by the originality and the interesting things they have. Look at the bracelet on the one at the top. It looks like something from another planet. Really amazing. A very fun watch, and you got a window for the balance and on the two on the bottom, plus those interesting bolts and screws that they have around the bezel. Lower left is a dragon. That's the it's simply a simple watch with a dragon image to it. This is what's fun about Carlos's collection. Got a lot of interesting stuff. Now, most of the movements, I think these are the only ones that have a seagull. The other ones mainly are ETA. I think there's one or two Solitas. There's Seiko, a couple in-houses. But don't look for high horology here, but there's some neat watches I think you might find very interesting. Now, here are two. The Bomberg skull is the first one. And here you have one. You can have it wear on your watch or use it as a pocket watch. It has a little chain with skulls on it. That's very interesting. The on this one, along the top of the head of the skull, it has a date. Is where the dates are. Scary. There's another one similar to it, except instead of a skull, it's got a cobra. And when you look at the pocket watch version, it's got a cobra with the watch fob in its mouth. Really, I mean, like, whoa. I'm seeing things. This is by Bomberg. Now, this group of four here, the first one is Azimuth. What an interesting watch. I mean, it's really very different. You don't have hands on it. You have this moon thing running around and the stars for your minutes and your hours. Fascinating watch. The next one to it is a Borealis. I know a lot of you say, well, yeah, it looks just like a Tudor, and it does, but it's not. But it's it's that style to it. Now, the lower left is one that's very, very interesting. It's a Accutron, but it was an Accutron that went on Apollo 15. And on the back of it, it says Apollo 15. So it's one of the moon watches, but it's not either a Rolex or an Omega. Next to that is one of my favorite brands. I really like Christopher Ward. They make good quality watches that are very affordable. They have their in-house movement called the SH21, and then they'll use ETAs and Solitas for the other ones. This one is the Trident, and it's a very nice, clean watch on this one. I like it a lot. And it's got a GMT to it too. Nice little watch. These are four very interesting ones. The upper left, the Fortis has a jumping hour and then a minute hand. Cool watch, very clean. Next to that is a Fossil, and I believe the Fossil has a pusher up at 2 o'clock, and look at the way the whole thing is set up. It's very clean, very interesting watch. Lower left is a Frederick Constant. I like Frederick Constants in steel. And this is one I really like. It's a GMT, and it's got dates and secondhand, and then of course it has the GMT hand, a little red tip to it. Next to it is a Glycine Airman. Glycine goes way back making pilot watches. A lot of people don't realize that, but you can see it's got a 24-hour and a 12-hour, and then it's got a GMT to it, or maybe it's a Zulu time. All right, here are the couple H2O watches. This is a brand that was new to me, H2O. The one on the top left is called an Orca, the diver kind of watch, and the one to the right is a GMT. A great big rotating bezel on that one. Have to watch. Lower left is a very interesting one. This is an Italian company called Gruppo. And it's a Gruppo, let's see, I'll say this wrong. It's a Gruppo Auto. Sorry, God, I can mangle any language. And like I said, it's Italian watch. I like the style of this one. It very much looks like auto sports or motorsports kind of watch, and the way that the bezel has the 5 bolts around it, 6 bolts. It's really a very cool looking watch. Lower right is a couple G shocks. Everybody needs a G shock, especially me. Now, this next group of watches has some brands that I had never heard of. One is the Helm, and it's got it looks like a diver. It's a diver's 300 meter on it with the bezel down at 4 o'clock. Not the bezel, but the crown down at 4 o'clock. Cool looking watch. Now the Helsing has 2 Helsings. One has, you can't see it in the upper right with a sort of it's like a watermark. It has a skull and crossbones there. Very cool, very subtle. And then the lower left, it has, there's a Helsing that it looks like a diver's helmet, and it's 500 meters, so it's most likely a diver, and made of bronze. Cool looking watch, I think. Now, one over to the far right is a Heroic 18, and this is another brass cased watch to it. Very much of a solid sports watch. Now, this next group, you get into some really interesting Invictas. There are 3 Invictas here. The one at the upper left is a chronograph. And one of the things that struck me about the chronograph is that looked on the side of it, and you can see it looks like it's sort of got this white marble at the top of the pushers, and those sort of knobs around it makes it into an extremely interesting looking watch. It looks like a lot of fun watch too. Below that is it's called the Grand Diver, 300 meters. That's 300 meters tested. Finally, over to the right is a very, very interesting Invicta. And the dial looks like the kind of shell the kind of pattern that you have a shell on abalone. I don't know if you ever open up an abalone shell, but you'll see that kind of marking on the inside. Really very pretty. Upper left here is another Invicta, and this one has very much of an open dial. You can see the entire movement in it. I think Carlos said that this may have been sort of similar to a Chronoscopes that had something similar to that. To the right is the Junghans, which has it's called a Chronoscope. This is a chronograph watch by them. I like this one. It's a very clean, readable chronograph. By and large, I don't care for chronographs, mainly because they're very hard to read with a lot of stuff around them. This one, though, I like a lot. Next to that is a Lumtech, and this is called the Combat Field Watch, and it looks like a rough and tumble watch, and no messing around watch. It's got the 60-minute markers in the indexes of 5, so you got 5, 10, 15, so forth around it, rather than 1 through 12. To the right is a Lumnox with a day date on it, and this has got an interesting way this one is set up. You have like a 24-hour hand on the inside ring, but and the outside ring there's from 1 through 12, but then after 12 you can read it as 13 for 1 o'clock rather than 1. Really very, very cool watch that I hadn't seen one exactly like that before. Now this next group has got some I one I've heard of. Heard of Marathon before, and this is looks like another diver, and to 10,000 feet. Ooh, it'll take you right down there to Davy Jones' locker. Next to that is an NTH, and it's called, the name is the Nockin. And it looks like another diver. It's got a rotating bezel, but it's in more of a two-tone blue-green teal. Lower left is it's just this NBS watch. It's just so interesting looking. You know, these watches, you know, you look at your watch, and if you have a watch with nothing but they all look the same, like a round or something. I've had to lobby people even to get a rectangular one just to get away from everything looking the same. But all of these some of them look the same, but boy, I tell you, the different ones are really different. Same with this Neptunes. What a watch. They're very much of looks like a diving bell diver watch rather than a scuba diver watch. Now this group of watches, you have an Orion. Now I think there's a brand, and one of the models is called the Orion, but this is a brand called Orion. And the name of this particular model is the Calamity. I love the name of it. And it's got a diving range of 660 feet. 666 Calamity. If I were diving, I probably wouldn't wear that one just out of sheer superstition. Next to that's another diver called a Raven. And I love the name of of the brand. Just very cool one. It's got interesting hands, a very sort of stubby looking ends to the hand, and it's got a finely pointed second hand on it. Oris, lower left Oris. I love that Oris. I think that's it. Well, sometimes a watch will look a different color at a certain angle. Now this one looks like a beautiful plum color to me. This is called the Oris Big Crown. Really like it. I like big crowns. You can wind them up. To the right is a Squally Diver, and this is with the orange and the black. I don't know why. I really like that color orange on divers. Docs is my favorite because of the color. This is just the Squally that's a very pretty dial. The way it looks, it's nice. It's rounded, and then it looks like a tile type of dial on a tile dial. Now this group, you have 3 Seikos and a Stilwell. The Seikos are divers, and then a Presage. The Presage is a very nice little either office watch or maybe it passes a dress watch. The Diver 200 up at the top has an extremely interesting bracelet on it. It's got this, looks like a wires going through the bracelet. Wonderful bracelet on that. The day date on the one to the right. Well, both of them have day dates on them. And again, Seiko is very solid watch. Now, this next group are Swatch. You got two Swatches and then a Taxio TC2. At the upper left is a big red bezeled chronograph from Swatch, and it's got this very funny way they put they put the date at 4 o'clock, which I happen to like, but they also put the 4 there too, which I thought, wow, why did I think of that? This is a funny thing. Like I said a number of times, I'm no big fan of chronographs because they're hard to read, but this one's very, very easy to read. I don't know how they did that, but they did. Now, the lower left is a System 51 from Swatch. This is the one that you're not supposed to have any kind of, you just get this supposedly perfect running watch, and you don't do anything to it. It's sealed up. You can't open up the back. And so on the back, though, they put, on the back of that watch, they have this very colorful plates over the movement, and with little, you can peek through it. It's fascinating little watch on that one. I like that. Now, its next group of watches, they have two of them use the Miyota 9015. The Tissot at the top has a porcelain dial on it. To find porcelain dials, you have to go back and look at these old pocket watches. This one's got, this is beautiful. I just like this watch a lot. In the upper left, called a Tissot. The I believe it's TW or SW. He got the hand in the way of this watch next to it. I've had all of these different ones. Let me take a look here real quick and see if I can find it. Yeah. Anyway, this one looks a little crowded to me. It's another chronograph, and just the colors, the way it goes back and forth, doesn't work too well. But on the other hand, it's a very good-looking watch in the upper right. Lower left is a Swiss Army watch. Victorinox is everyone has who has had a Swiss Army knife at one time in their or other. Most guys have had one, and it's got the date at 430. It's set up for 200 meter, which sounds very much like a diver, but it doesn't look like a diver. It doesn't have the feel of a diver, at least since I get. Now the one next to it is by a company called Visitor, one I didn't know about. Wonderful bracelet on that, one of those sort of rice, what they call a rice bracelet. The thing that's interesting about this, though, is it has fountain pins for hands. They're shaped like fountain pins. In the lower left, lower right, you can see what the hands look like. They look like the tip of a fountain pen. Really, very, very interesting watch on that one. Now, this last group is, you have another Visitor, and again, it's got this Miyota 9015 in it, but it's called the Visitor Val Park Officer Watch. An officer's watch are the ones you can pop open the back and you can see the movement in it. I love watches that do that. And so what you have is a relatively affordable watch with a feature that you usually only find in very expensive ones. Now, the watch in the lower left is one of the most ingenious watches anywhere. I really like this watch. You have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 different tracks, okay? And what happens is that depending on the time, the sort of the moon-shaped tips of the hands will go over one of the tracks or another, depending on the time. And so what happens is that you have, it's really fascinating to look at these things. Notice that it's got double balance wheels, and it shows the two balance wheels. So you're trying to figure out this watch, the way the hands are going and everything else with two balance wheels. What an interesting watch, very interesting one. The final one is a Zelos Hammerhead Meteorite. It's got a Seiko NH35 in it. This watch is a meteorite. They take slices of meteorite and use them as a backdrop. And then in this brass case, this is a fascinating looking watch. Anyway, what would I recommend to something like this? To me, what I would recommend is a Harboring 2 Felix, here just to get a sense of a totally handmade. Carlos is an industrial engineer he appreciates craftsmanship and workmanship, and boy, he sure appreciates a lot of different innovations that have been done with the dials and the way that time telling. Really a fascinating, like I said, it's a fun, fabulous, and affordable collection. Let me know what you think, and until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection.